This is Changing Channels with Larry Walsh, the Channelnomics podcast that connects you with channel chiefs, thought leaders, and executives about what it takes to get the next generation of tech to market. Here's your host, Larry Walsh, the CEO and Chief Analyst of Channelnomics.
Hey everyone, Larry Walsh here. Welcome back to Changing Channels. We hear a lot about how the channel is evolving and changing. There are new models, there are new partner types, there are new ways of getting products to market. And some people, many people, have adopted this idea of ecosystems, that there's a network of complementary companies that work together through some level of orchestration to satisfy the customer's needs and deliver the outcomes that they're expecting. Now, if you've watched my podcast before, if you've watched the other videos I do on my other podcast, in the margins, you'll know I have some contrarian views about what ecosystems are and what they mean. I'm going to put that aside for this conversation because I will submit that the partner types are changing, that there are new ways of engaging the market than just through a reseller or an integrator or a service provider. That there are other companies out there that have influence over customer consideration, and in some cases even are the transactors of technology sales. One group that is now getting some attention is private equity firms. Now, I would not consider private equity as a route to market or a potential partner in a channel or an ecosystem. Private equity firms, these are the money people. They buy companies. They buy mature companies and take them off the market, or they fund innovative startups, or they fund renovation projects. But they're not the sellers. They're not the ones who are facilitating sales or building channels, at least directly. And yet, some industrious channel chiefs and ecosystem orchestrators are tapping into the private equity community to find a new route to market, to help companies within those portfolios optimize around the technologies they have and bring new solutions to the customer. Now, when I first heard this, so I'll admit that I was a bit surprised by this entire concept, but it actually does make sense. And one company that's a few steps out in front on this is Zuora. Now, the channel chief at Zuora, Balaji Subramanian, somebody I've known for some time, great guy who's held channel leadership roles at Informatica and ServiceMax. He's been around at Adobe and Cisco channels. I mean, this guy knows the industry, and he's out there actively working the private equity community to make them a part of the Zuora ecosystem. So that's why we brought our old friend, Balaji Subramanian, to Changing Channels to talk about private equity as partners. So with that, Balaji, welcome to Changing Channels. Balaji, great to see you.
Hey, Larry, good afternoon. Nice to see you as well, as always.
So before we jump into the topic at hand, why don't you tell us, you've had it, since we last had you on the old podcast, it's been a few years. You've had a few different jobs since then. What is Zuora and what's Zuora's approach to channels?
So I work for a company called Zuora, as you just mentioned. We've been around for a number of years, went public back in 2018, I think it is. So we are a public company. And what we focus on, very simply put, is making all of our customers around us who are going through this digital transformation and going to a subscription world and a subscription economy that we're in, make them successful, right? And specifically, we focus with customers on for the whole quote to cash. So as you can imagine, a customer thinking about, what do I want to do in my life here as I look forward here? How do I want to take my customers and make them more successful, especially in the subscription economy world? And so if you look at it and think about how they want to price, how do I want to package? How do I want to make sure that I comply with revenue recognition rules that are different maybe from a subscription standpoint? How do I want to go to a consumption model? How do I want to make sure that from a payment standpoint, as a consumption model and subscription model, everything's going well? How do I want to make sure that from a tax standpoint, everything's being done well? How do I optimize all of those processes and make sure that as I move to this subscription economy, subscription world, and subscription model, I make my customer successful, and therefore I'm going to be successful. So, in a nutshell, that's what our company is, and we focus worldwide. We have many customers from many verticals, many industries. It's amazing that as I look at the use cases and the customer stories that are coming in, it's just amazing, right? You have guitar company, Fender, right? And this is important, right? So if you don't mind, I'll spend a minute on it, just give you guys some examples, if that's cool with you. It's really more around customers, our customers thinking about, I've been selling units, and I've been selling products, and I've been thinking about building and selling them. And what I really want to do now in this new world is, what do my customers want from an experience standpoint? So therefore, my focus goes from building and selling products and units to building and selling experiences, right? So I don't know if you're into music, I think you are, but Fender, for example, right? The guitar company. They were thinking, we sell guitars for many, many years. Now they're focused to, how do I make my customers a rock star? That's what they want. All of us are sitting in our homes buying a guitar, and we're thinking, hey, we're a rock star. So how do I get that experience, right? How do I make that go to that type of business model? There's many services attached to that, many subscription services attached to that, many consumption services attached to it. Ford, another customer of ours, cars, right? We sell cars, we build cars, we sell cars. Now the experience is, how do I go from point A to point B, right? And what is that experience, right? New York Times is another big customer of ours, right? It's all around selling newspapers. Well, no, it's really about how to be informed, how to be entertained, right? That's the experience and the subscription model and a consumption model that I want to build around, right? Caterpillar, this blew my mind when I joined the company, right? I never thought of Caterpillar as focusing on subscription or consumption, but they are going from, how do I build these excavators, let's call them, right, as a product, to go to more of my customers really wanted to go to, like, how do I move things with ease, right? And so I can go on and on, right? So we have many customers spread across all of these verticals and industries that are focused on customers to make them successful in this new subscription world. And so that's what Zuora is all about.
That's fantastic. What you're describing is the outcome-based economy. It's not the product, it's what the product does that you're actually getting towards. I experience this because I'm as many people know, I'm a loyal Delta customer. I only fly Delta Airlines. And 9 times out of 10, they do very well by me. I mean, nobody's perfect, but they do very well. I always say that. I thought they were really out ahead of this in the airline industry in saying that people don't care about flying. They care about getting to their destination, what happens when they get there. And that's, again, a great example of the outcome-based economy.
Yes, exactly. So that's why I joined Zuora, because of just the big addressable market in front of us. And then most importantly, we are a partner first company, right? And so we're very, very focused on partners, and I get a chance to build this ecosystem of partners. And I know sometimes that's widely overused, that term, but in this case, true. We do have an ecosystem of partners that we want to be able to mature and grow and scale with us as well.
So I'm glad you said that. That's a really good segue to what I wanted, something I wanted to bring up with you. I've always known you as a channel chief or a senior vice president or vice president of channels in your various roles, Informatica or at iGel. So that's been a very traditional moniker that you've worn. But you, in this role, have actually adopted a different moniker. Is this, whether it's something you came up with or whether the company came up with a global partner, vice president of global partner ecosystems. So what does that mean to you? Because I have my own opinions about this, what I consider to be an extraordinarily tortured word, ecosystem. But why don't we start with you? What do what is it about this? It required you to accept a new title that with a whole different connotation to it.
Yeah, no, it's a great question, and something that is important, I think, to a company's growth aspirations, right? I think it's very clear to most companies that the only way that they're going to grow and scale is to be able to not just dependent upon building a product and selling it to a customer, but being able to be dependent upon other companies around you who could be competitors, who could be complementary vendors, as you are, and build that type of ecosystem that allows not only you to grow and scale, but your customer to be so super successful, because now you're not singularly focused with them on a very narrow view. You're focused on a much more broader view of how do I make this customer successful, right? And it means many, many different things from outside the walls of my company here. And so when I came into this role, that was the thought, was like, how do I make sure that I not just work with a channel reseller, for example, but really make sure that I start with the customer and work backwards. And how is the customer going to be successful? They're going to be successful if I meet them where they want to be met, first of all. So here's a good example. I have marketplaces, Azure, Microsoft Azure, AWS, and those are key partners for me now because my customers want to be met there. And so that becomes a partner type and part of my overall partner ecosystem to me, right? And another I mentioned earlier, and sort of our Zuora's business model in terms of payment, taxes, and those kinds of things. Well, gosh, I have a whole bunch of ISV partners who are very important to our success, to our customer success, because we now are enabling our customers to have a much better experience because they can do VAT taxes and taxes. So a tax gateway, a payment gateway, all of those things are very important, not only Zuora, but to the customer and to my ISVs. So we work with them in integrating their products into ours and ours into them, right? To make sure that they're part of this thing as well. PE firms, which I'll talk to you about in a second, are going to be another part of the ecosystem as well. And then your traditional, what I'll call global system integrators, regional system integrators, they're very focused on growing wallet share and acquiring new customers out there. And so we want to work with them. And all of these guys, interestingly enough, work with each other, right? So when we were at a kickoff a month or so ago, my SIs wanted to meet my tax ISVs. My tax ISVs wanted to meet my, AWS people, right? And so we're all working together. And so even success for me as a channel chief or as a partner ecosystem chief, et cetera, it's not necessarily some traditional metrics that we've always talked about of, source bookings or revenue and things like that. It's almost around customer satisfaction and the solutions that we're going to be jointly offering to our customers. That's really where I should be, I think, measured upon more and more as I go forward.
So everything you described there sounds really interesting and logical, as it did yesterday when it was already being done. So I struggle with this, Balaji. I mean, and look, you and I have known each other for a long time. We can have this candid conversation with the few thousand of our friends listening in on it like this. But how is this even different than what we were doing before? Is that was the job. Alliances made connections. Product development opened up APIs for or created APIs for hooking in different applications so they could talk to each other. Resellers would pull together and work with distributors to find these other products, and then they'd satisfy the customer need. What's changed?
Yeah, no, a great question. The way I would answer that question is all of those things were isolated actions. And I think the difference is that it's now become more of a concerted action that needs someone and an organization to take aim at almost, and to make sure that they're all moving in a somewhat concerted movement, right? A smooth movement, rather than being in isolation. I'll give you a great example. Even my company. The ISV team, right, was in another organization, right, and very isolated and not as much connected to the global partner view that we wanted to take. So they were doing things by themselves and not really understanding the effect or, frankly, the help that they could get from other partner types as well. And so it's really that difference, taking it from an isolated type of effort to much more of a concerted, broader effort that drives much better, meaningful actions.
Yeah, look, I'll grant you that. I agree with you in that part. And this brings into the heart of why we're having this discussion. So you mentioned private equity or PE firms as a part of the ecosystem. And we've been hearing about the diversification of the channel, that there are more options for routes to market, different new types of partner types. I can debate on that one a little bit as well, but I'm not going to be such a Luddite to say that there aren't. You, though, are moving in an interesting direction here, because while I absolutely see the potential of working with more closely and collaboratively with ISVs and resellers in a holistic motion, completely on board with that, I didn't quite see this one, which is private equity as a part of an ecosystem or a driver of channel sales or go-to-market sales. So what's this idea that you have? Because you're not alone. There's a few other channel chiefs, ecosystem heads, that are out there that are also exploring this option, but you seem to be a couple of steps out in front. So what is this idea behind drawing in private equity into an ecosystem?
Yeah, good question. And it's a lot of fun, actually. It's exciting. So my last three companies have been acquired by PE firms, right, before I came here. And so I kind of got to know how they came in, how they thought, how they acted, how they behaved, what they did, right? And if you think about, a traditional PE firm, they have operating partners. And those operating partners are really the ones who try to enact that value creation process when a PE firm buys a company, so they can sell it for a higher multiple, right? And as part of that value creation process, they really look at a company's infrastructure and see if it's operationally efficient, right, and suitable to meet the company's objectives over the next 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, whatever it might be, their horizon, right? And when the company's getting ready to be sold, we want, they want the value assessment and the creation to be high, so they can sell it at a much higher multiple. And so that's a very traditional way of how PE firms approach these things. And so for us, and I described Zuora and kind of what we focus on, it made sense for us to be able to embrace the PE firms as partners for us, to help us go and help their portfolio of companies, right, optimize their infrastructure, because all of those companies need to be optimized. The office of the CFO, the office of the CIO, both of them are, ones that we focus on. And be it, like my last company, I'll give you a great example. My last company will say, focus on perpetual licensing. We were still a perpetual license company, but we were starting to transition to become a subscription company. And so pricing, packaging, consumption, revenue recognition, all of those need to come in place. They're a prime candidate for me to go after and work with that PE firm who acquired them to say, hey, let's optimize you, right? So when I think about acquiring new customers, new logos, or expanding wallet share within an existing customer, PE firms naturally fall into, a great source of working with them to be able to drive that kind of stuff, right? The other interesting thing that I didn't know till I kind of dove into this is that many of my traditional GSIs and larger RSIs have a completely different group or a separate group that is focused just on PE. In fact, they've told me that anywhere from 50% to 80% of their quote to cash type of solution, customers who are coming to them for solutions, they're all owned by PE firms. And I said, great. And so now I have PE firms, and there's many PE firms. So we've narrowed our list down to about 4 to 6 firms that we're working on. And then I have my traditional GSIs that now I'm working with their groups that are focused just on PE-owned firms also. So I have these two motions going on and we'll probably jointly, gather some of them as well. So it's really, it's a great route to market for us. And our PE firms have jumped in with both feet, saying we love it, because what you offer to our customers is exactly what we want to be able to do, is to optimize their systems, their processes, and everything as they go to a subscription consumption model.
Yeah. So when you're approaching these private equity firms, I mean, was this a conversation they thought they were going to have? Is this something that they were expecting to? Because typically when you go to a PE firm, you're talking about, well, can you do a deal? Not necessarily, hey, can we work together? And then like in the good private equity firms, when they build up these portfolios of I wouldn't say similar companies, but they do tend to have some synergies, and they all do have some backplane functions that can be consolidated to help them all grow together. So I mean, this is not alien to optimization of business processes and operations. Isn't necessarily alien to private equity, but to actually think about this as a private equity as a channel is kind of a newish idea. Wouldn't you not say it? That I would imagine it's almost alien to start that conversation.
Yeah, it is. It is not a natural thing that a channel chief would normally think about, right? But in this case, it just clicked, and I have a great person on my team, Michael Belkin, who's wonderful at this, right? And so remember, there are people who make the deals, and then there are operating partners. And so you start there, and then you go down to the operating partners, because they're the ones who manage the portfolio. And they're the ones that we need to talk to. And they have a structure. Each of them has a structure of how they want to be communicated with. But I'll give you some examples of things that we're looking at that are important to them. Pricing is important to them, right? So they're saying, hey, we want a price book, right? We want a term sheet, right, with you, in terms of how we want to go and either have our portfolio of customers buy from you, right? We want to try to manage that properly. And so we're putting together a separate price book just for this, set of partners that are very specific to them. We want to make sure that there's a rinse and repeat motion as well, right? Making this a little bit more turnkey. So we're putting together a playbook on this, right? On how to do that, and sharing those use cases across these different companies, right? These different PE firms. So they get it. They say, oh yeah, I got this company that is focused on energy, and you got a rinse and repeat solution there that we can just put in right away. Remember, 3 companies that I've been at who were acquired by PE firms, we listened to them. They said, you're going to go with this vendor to buy your ERP system. We're going to go to this company, and you're going to use that company to buy your CRM system, et cetera, right? And so, these companies listen to their PE firms. And so if you get there, get into their cadence, have rinse and repeat use cases, and be able to offer it in a meaningful manner with a price book, good things can happen.
So, but this sounds like a customer relationship. It's like almost as if you're setting up a buying collaborative where because of your relationship with a private equity company, that the companies within their portfolio get a preferential treatment or a special price break or some type of, it doesn't sound like there's what we would consider to be an active partnership here. So how does that translate, this idea of incorporating a private equity firm into an ecosystem translate into a broader ecosystem strategy?
Yeah, no, it's not separate or different. There's no, by the way, there's no, benefits from a pricing that we would give to these kind of customers that are different. It's terms of, it's really more around how we offer it, the offer and the packaging behind it could be a little different. But everything else, Larry, really stays the same. And what I mean by that is we still need to enable these partners as well as their customers if they don't know anything about Zuora. We still need to market to them. We still need to market with them. I'll give you a good example. We are going to I'll call it a PE operator type of conference later on in June in San Francisco, right? And there are many of our GSIs who are there, many of our PE firms who are going to be there. And there's a whole list of, activities and sessions centered around technology, products, everything else, right? So we're going to be there with them, marketing with them to customers and being part of their extended route to market from that standpoint also. So it's really no different, I think, than working with another partner. Obviously, the audience is a little different. How they think, how they behave is a little different. So you got to cater to that. But nothing different than that. In the end, they want more customers. They want to acquire more customers. And they want to increase wallet share. And that's what we want also. So start always with the customer, work backwards, and see how you can make sure that they're successful.
Yeah, and I really am. I'm envious of you. You're going to go to San Francisco because, as everyone knows, the most expensive time of year to go to San Francisco is all the time. So,
yeah. Well, I live here in the Bay Area, so it's easy for me to go.
You get to go home.
Yeah, exactly.
So do the private equity firms, do they seek anything? Because look, the traditionally speaking is that if you approach a partner or a reseller or an integrator, there's some give to get relationship. I'm going to give you something, I'm going to get something back from it. Do the private equity firms have the same expectation that there's some give to get in this process?
No, nothing that we've seen, no give and gets, nothing like that. It's really, again, centered around how do I make my portfolio of customers, and it's probably not all of them, but certain subset of them more successful, right?
Yeah.
Because, man, we've acquired them and we want to increase their value. And we want to be able to, sell them in 3 years. And so how do I do that, right? And to be able to do that is to be able to invest in them in a meaningful manner around processes and systems and make them much more, successful in the market, right? And grow their value from that standpoint. So they're looking for help. And just like, my last company, again, I'll use it, we invested in ServiceNow. Yeah, because we want to be much more efficient in how we manage all of our service cases and things like that. Same thing, right? If we have lots of customers out there who are owned by PE firms who want to be able to go to a subscription model, how do we make them successful? Hey, buy Zuora because we can help you.
Yeah.
Very simple. Yeah.
So on the spectrum of opportunities that are out there, this is interesting because I think what you're doing here truly is innovative. But I do question, what is the material impact on your organization? Where does this fit in the spectrum of other go-to-market relationships do you have? Is this an emerging or is this experimental route to market to you?
Yeah, that's a great question. Obviously, we've just started. I've just started this out, and so I wouldn't call it experimental, but it's certainly nascent. It's new, and again, we have a PE firm who has invested a bunch in us, even though we're a public company, and they have raised their hand and said, "Listen, we want to be your number one PE firm in acquiring new companies, creating pipeline, and selling more, right, for Zuora." And so naturally, they're going to be one of the people I work with, but there are many other ones also that we're working with. And so it's not experimental. It's something that we want to grow. Right? I see this growing. I see this becoming bigger, especially when I hear that 50%, sometimes even up to 80% of quote to cash prospects come from PE-owned companies. It's a no-brainer for me. That's saying, damn, we got to go after it. By the way, another side note, we looked at our ARR, existing, right, ARR that we have today, and about more than a third of it today is from companies that are owned by PE firms. There you go, another statistic, right? And so it's not going to go away. I think it's going to grow, and we would be wise to make sure that we invest in it properly and put in the right processes, the systems, the motion, right, the playbooks, and all of that. So it becomes just another partner type, part of our overall partner ecosystem, and make sure that everybody's working well with each other too. So.
Very good. So, Balaji, I'm going to wrap up this conversation with this question for you. Because I think it's important, is we've already established this is not the natural place to go to. This is not a person like you and the people who listen to this podcast. This is not, when you get into a new job, you're building a new channel, going to private equity isn't your first move. But so what do you think is the one thing that everybody should know before they pick up the phone or they send out a Zoom link to a private equity firm saying, hey, let's discuss channels? What's that thing they need to have in front of them before they make that call?
Yeah, probably a couple of things, 2 or 3 things. First of all, the services that you sell, the solutions that you sell, are they ripe, so to speak, for the customers that these PE firms own? If they're not, they're going to show very little interest in it, right? I'm fortunate enough to be able to work in a company like this that obviously appeals to those types of customers and will help them be successful. So that's why the PE firms would be very interested. So it's easier to get their mind share when we reach out to them and talk to them, saying yes, nodding of heads. That's important. Second thing is they're all very busy. And so you got to make sure that you spend meaningful time with them, no matter how much time you spend with them, meaningful time with them, and not adhere, maybe that's too strong a word, but make sure you embrace how they think and act, because each of them are slightly different. And even like monthly updates. One of my PE firms likes a certain format, right? They said, you're going to get mind share from your these operators if you use this particular template. Done. Operator, give it to us. We'll put it in that so they can recognize it and they don't have to think hard more than that. So that's important. And then make sure that there's no what I'll call not conflict of interest, but conflict of interest to some extent between customer, partner, PE firm, that is, other partners in the industry, and us. No, there shouldn't be any of that kind of stuff. It should all be aligned to where we're headed, where we want to go, right? And that's where some of the packaging, the playbook, all of that comes into play. Then it becomes much more of a program. You have a programmatic thing. So make sure, but the most important thing is make sure that your products, solutions, services that you're selling are meaningful to these PE firms. If not, obviously they won't pay attention to you.
Very good. Well, it's great to have you back here again, Balaji, and we're going to have to get you back here again more frequently. Everyone, Balaji Subramanian, he is the Vice President of Global Partner Ecosystems at Zuora.
Thank you, Larry. Very much appreciate it. It's been great. Thank you.
Well, everyone, that's about all the time we have for this edition of Changing Channels. Again, I want to thank our guest, Balaji Subramanian of Zuora, for joining us to talk about private equity as partners in the go-to-market equation or ecosystems. And again, as always, I want to thank all of you for joining us. We do this to help you understand what's happening in the world around us and what's happening in the channel. If you like what we're doing, please hit like, subscribe to our channel, check out our other podcast, In the Margin and the Network Effect with Bryn Nettesheim, and tell your friends about all of the content we produce here at Channelnomics. Technology is changing the world, and how that technology gets to market is through the channel. Channelnomics is here to help all of you understand what's happening in the world around you and how to leverage the channel to get a better result. Please keep coming back. Until next time, I'm Larry Walsh.
Thank you for joining Changing Channels with Larry Walsh, a production of Channelnomics. If you've enjoyed today's episode, hit the like button, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and share with your friends. For more information about Channelnomics services and insights, follow us on Twitter and YouTube, and check out our website at channelnomics.com. Channelnomics is a registered trademark of, and Changing Channels is copyright by 2112 Enterprises, LLC.